Hey guys, today we're going to be making a photo app. This is kind of inspired by a piece that I saw that was done by a guy named Craig Murray. He worked on an app called SmugMug, which is a photo display album creation app. And one of the animations when you interact with one of the photos or albums, I really liked they kind of shuffled off screen, accordioned out, and the photo that you're trying to look at then scales up and takes up the whole screen. So what we're going to do is something very similar, where we have this group of photos. We can scroll through them, or look through them, and then when we tap on this, they expand out. The photo becomes like unclipped and takes full screen, and then you'll be able to drag it or tap it and go down to full width or back up to full height, and then we can close out of it. So let's get started. So I'm building this on an iPhone 6, so that's the canvas size that you're going to want to choose for this. And then I've already placed the assets. If you don't have the asset package, you can get them off my website. There's a link in the description for that. So what we're going to do is first create the basic structure of this. What we can do is first we'll place the app bar in. And then what we're going to have in here is a scroll container, a container for the actual photo that we're going to be interacting with, and a background. So first we'll create this background. We'll just create a new layer. We're going to make this full canvas size. I'm just going to choose this black up here, rename this to background, and put the app bar up on top. Then we'll create a new layer, place it directly below the app bar, make it take up the rest of the canvas. This is going to be our scroll container, so we'll make this transparent. We'll rename this scroll. And I'm going to put this below here. Then what we can do is start placing our photos in. I'm just going to place these roughly right now, just to get them all in. And you'll notice that we actually skip photo 3. We go 1, 2, 4, 5, up to 9. Reason for that is because photo 3 is the one that we're going to be interacting with, and that's going to be its own special thing. We're going to kind of create it to make it look like the rest of these photos. So once we get this placed in, we can do that. So we'll come back to the main screen, or our layers, and we'll just drop all of these into the scroll container in order, just like this. Okay. Now photo 1 can be at 0, we want it to be at 0, 0. And then we're going to just place these, stack these directly on top. Now photo 2 is going to be right here. Now since we have this empty space, we need to imagine that there's photo 3 here. So photo 4 is actually going to be placed at 349. I placed it pretty accurately. And then we can stack the rest of these up. So they're all going to be at 0 and their left position, and then stack up from here. So once we get that, what we can do is make the container for our beautiful seagull photo. Now it's going to be a layer that's the size of these photos themselves. So it'll be 117 pixels tall, full width. And we want to place this directly below our other photo, between photo 2, which is at 318 on the canvas. We'll make this transparent, rename it to photo 3, and we're going to place it below the scroll container above the background. Then we can bring in the seagulls. We'll just drop this right in here. Looks like it's loaded in. I'm going to put this inside of the photo container. And the placement for this is going to be negative 310 and negative 276. Now it's large right now. We're going to end up scaling this down so that it looks more normal, but we want it to be big because this is its final state, so we want to have high resolution. We don't want to put it in small because then if we scale it up, we're going to get a lot of pixelation. We don't want that. So we're going to be able to do three things with this photo. We're going to tap it, we're going to be able to long press it, and we're also going to be able to drag it. And we'll set up the functions for these in a second. But what we need to do first is build another layer, which is the scrim. So all these photos you can see, let's get that reloaded. You can see that they're kind of muted. It's because they have a dark scrim over them. Now the end state of our photo is to not be muted, so we're going to create a scrim on top of this. So let's create another layer. And I'm going to make this 183 pixels tall. It's going to sit in the middle. The reason that it's 183 pixels tall is so that as these photos here start to move out, the scrim is also going to be fading out. So by the time that this border reaches up here, this will be faded out. That way we don't get any hard edges. So we're just making sure that it's going to be clean. I'm going to choose to make this as black. I'm going to put the opacity at 50%. So it's looking just like that. That's good. Rename this to scrim. And then this is tappable. And then we'll place this in here. I'm going to place this below photo 4 so that we don't get this overlap over here. So now on our scroll, let's add a scroll interaction to this so that we can make this scroll. And then we're going to make the photo 3 scroll with it. So we're going to add a move animation. Call this move with scroll. And it's going to be based off of scroll position, continuously with rate. We're going to change the rate to -1. So now this scrolls with us just like we want it to. So now in order to get our photo to look normal to its normal size, right now it's at its final almost full screen end state. I'm going to go and I'm going to make this photo container half of its size. So I'm going to change its scale to 0.5. So now this looks like it fits better. And then what's going to happen is when I tap on this, it's going to expand upwards, and then we'll have our control area through here. And now what we need to do is start to build the animations. So scrim, this is our main point of contact for this outside main area. So what we're going to do is tell all of these layers, these first photos, and the app bar, and the photo itself to animate based off that scrim. So the first thing we'll do is we'll actually get this app bar to move off. So I'm going to add 2 move animations to this. Call this first one move out, the second one move in. Move out is going to be based off of the scrim's tap. I'm going to tell it to move its bottom to 0. And I'm going to use a spring easing curve with a friction of 20, a tension of 250. I'm going to put a 0.6 second delay on this. So if I tap it, it moves up. Minimize that. And now we'll come in and do the photos. Now we're not going to make all these photos move. We're going to make the first, the second, the fourth, and the fifth, because those are the ones that are immediately visible on screen. And you're welcome to make the rest of these move off if you want to. We're not going to do that. But if you build it this way, what you need to remember is that you won't be able to tap on this scrim from like a scrolled up view, or it's not going to display properly because the rest of these won't move. You should only interact with this at this stage if you're at the lowest scroll point or from the main fresh screen. So I'm going to add 2 move animations to these photos. I'm just going to place them all in first. to 1, 2, 4, and 5. And we'll run through these real quick and tell them where to go. So we'll name this first one move out, move in. We're going to do that for all these, move out, move in. Move out is always going to be based off of Scrim's tap. We're going to tell this one to move up to negative 188. And for the move out, we're going to use a ease in circular easing curve. This is a really nice one because it starts out slow and then rapidly advances upwards. So it's very fluid looking. We're going to set the duration to 0.4 seconds, and the delay on this is going to be 0.2. Now for move in, we're going to set this to Seagull's long press, and then we'll tell it to move back. So set this at 0. And for the move in, we're going to use a spring easing curve. We're going to set the friction to 30 and the tension to 225. And I'm going to do a delay of 0.3. So when these move out, for the top, I want it to move out first, but then when they come back in, I want it to move in last. So we're going to offset these delays. Let's do photo 2. I want photo 2 to move on Scrim's tap. It's going to go up to negative 84. It's not as high as the last ones. Get that ease in circular. Duration is 0.4 and the delay on this is going to be 0.3. And then when it comes back in, tell it to come back to where it is with our spring. 30 at 225. And the delay on this is 0.2. So the delay for the other one was 0.3, but going out was 0.2. So for this one, it's 0.2. Just switching and making these opposite for the tops and the bottoms. So for photo 4, we'll rename these. Set this to Scrim's tap. This one's going to move down to 667. We use that same ease in circular easing curve. 0.4 second duration with a 0.3 second delay. And then move in, Seagull's long press. Bring it back home at 349 with our spring. And then we'll set the delay at 0.2. Then we'll do our final one. When it moves out, it's going to go down all the way to 785. .4 second duration. And for this delay, we're not going to do 0.2 because it's actually a little bit lower on the screen. See, we're only showing part of it. So I'm going to say change the delay to 0.15 on this, just offset that just a little bit. And then for the move in, Seagull's long press, we can keep it the same. So we're going to tell it to come back to 466, get that spring 30 and 225, and the delay on this is fine, 0.3. Now I also want this whole scroll container to disappear when I tap on it. So I'm going to add 2 fade animations. Do this first one to fade out. It's going to be based off of the Scrim's tap. We're going to have it fade to 0. The duration is going to be instant, but we're going to do a 1 second delay on it. And then fade in is going to be based off of when we come back with the Seagull's long press, or photo's long press. Bring it back to 100, And we're going to have this one be instant. Now I'm realizing we didn't set the app bars move back in feature. No, we did not. So let's do that. So let's say when the seagull's long pressed, we're going to have this top come back down to 0. We're actually going to use a little different easing curve. We're going to use an ease out. We're going to set this to exponential. That way it's kind of a smooth transfer in. Duration of 0.4 with a delay of 0.2. And now we've got our basic animation structures set up, and we're going to obviously make this look much better. But see, when I press on it, these move out, these go flat out. And then when I hold on this, they move back in nicely. So now let's work on the photo itself. Now what we're going to do is we're going to tell this to do a few things. We're going to have it scale up. We're going to tell it to move. We're going to then have it scale down and move back. So we'll get that going. So first let's set our scale up animation. Currently it's at 0.5. Now when we open this up, when we tap on the scrim, I want this to come up to 1x. Keep the anchor point centered. You use a spring. We're going to set the friction on this to 30 with a tension of 250. And we're going to do delay of 0.7 seconds. So once everything's off the screen, then it's going to make its journey. Now what I also wanted to do, so when we open this, we have this gap up top. So because it's off-centered, so what I'm going to do is tell this to move, and we'll get it positioned properly. So I'm going to call this move up. It's based off Scrim's tap. And we got to remember that this is, since there's odd scaling with this, and it's not the proper size, and it's in a weird part of the canvas, we're not going to tell it to move up to 0. We're actually only going to move it to its top to 275. Now I've just figured this out literally by just trying and testing each pixel. It took a little bit, but that's the easiest way that it was for me. But we got it. So I'm going to set this spring, do a spring easing curve, friction of 20, tension of 100, and then a 0.6 second delay. So now as this reloads, you can see it pops up, and this is just where I want it to be. Now when I close this, now it's in its weird position still. So what I want to do is get this to scale down and then move back down. So let's add another scale animation to this. Call this scale down. This is going to be based off of the photo's long press. Bring it back down to 0.5. And I'm going to use an ease out circular 0.4 second delay, or duration with 0 delay. And then let's move this back down. Add another move animation. Based off the long press. And we'll bring it back to its position at 318. Do an ease out quadratic, 0.4 second duration. So once we get that, tap this open, long press, it goes back down, right back into its spot. So now let's get this scrim to fade out. You can see this is harsh, it's just disappearing with the scroll, but I want this to fade out much nicer. So I'm going to add 2 fade animations with this. Call this fade out. Then we'll do a fade in. These are going to just be basic. So when scrim's tapped, it'll go to 0. It'll be linear, 0.2 second duration, 0.2 second delay. And then fade in is when we back out. Seagull's long press. Now it's only at 50%. We're not going to bring it up to 100. We're going to bring it back to 50. And we're going to do a 0.4 second delay on this. The current duration is fine. Change this back to 50. So now when I pop this open, it places itself. When I hold it, it moves back, and our scrim goes back into place. So now what I want to do is I want to take care of this, see this photo that's kind of leaving some remnants behind. Before we do the rest of this photo and the expansion and drag, I'm going to add 2 more layers, and they're going to be the clipping bounds. So it looks like there's another, clipping a masked off area of this photo that's expanding. And the way I'm going to do that is make 2 layers. They're going to be the same color as the background, and those are going to move with the photo. So this first one, we'll make it the same color as our background. We'll make this full width, and it's going to be 234 pixels tall. Call this top, and I'm going to place these below all the photos, but within the scroll container. Then I'll make another one. I'll call this bottom. Make it the same color, full width, and this guy's going to be 293 pixels tall. Put it within the container. Let's make sure these are in proper order. And this is going to be 349 pixels down. So it's right here at the bottom. Then we're going to add 2 move animations with these. 1 for each, and 2 for each. Come up to top, and we'll call this first one move out. Second one is move in. So move out is based off of the scrim's tap. We tell this to move up to -84. We're going to use our ease in circular easing curve, 0.4 second duration, 0.4 second delay. And then with the move in, it's based off of the seagull's long press. Tell this to move back to where it is at 0. We'll bring up that old spring easing curve, friction of 30, tension of 225. And we're going to do a delay of 0.1 seconds, just a little bit faster. We'll do the same for bottom. Move out and move in. Move out is off the scrim. Tell its top to move down to 667 off the screen. Use our spring or our ease in circular easing curve. 0.4 second duration, 0.4 second delay. Then move in so you can guess. Tell it to go back to 349. Use our spring, 30 and 225, and then we're going to do the 0.1 second delay on this. So we got that set. Looking back, I realized that we did make an early mistake. Now you'll have to forgive me. This is a complicated thing to build, and these things happen. It's easy to miss some things, but it's going to be really simple to fix. If we go back to photo 1 and 2, with our move out, we don't want the top to move, or do we want us to say the bottom for both of these to move? So photo 1 and photo 2 on the move outs, we change it from top to bottom, and then we're going to do the same thing for this clipping thing that we made. So when we move out, it's not the top that moves out to 84, -84, it's the bottom. So now when we open this, it's much smoother. It goes off screen. That's much better. Glad we figured that out. Okay, beautiful. So the final step is I want to make this photo scale and drag. Now it's already draggable, but we're going to have to set the parameters for this so it doesn't go off screen and go all crazy. So we'll do that. Let's just minimize this scroll. Let's come down here to Seagulls. And we'll edit this. So we have the drag set. So we'll tell this that we want it to only be horizontal. And I want its, for its minimum position, I want the right to go no less than 373. And for its max position, its left should go no further than -40. I'm not going to add any stretch past minimum. We don't need that. Now, I want to be able to scale this down when I tap it. So I'm going to add a scale animation to this. We name this scale down. Now this is going to be when Photos is tapped, not long press, when Seagulls is tapped. And we're going to have to add a condition to this. So I want to be able to go both ways. So if I tap it, we'll copy this layer ID, seagulls.jpg or seagulls JPEG, paste that in there. So if its dot scale is equal to 1, so if it's scaled up, it's going to start scaling up to 1. We're going to scale this down to 0.38. We're going to use a spring easing curve, and we're going to use keep the friction at 20, tension at 250. There's going to be no delay. Then we'll click plus condition, repaste in our layer ID, dot scale, and if it's equal to or less than 1, we'll bring it back up to 1 using our spring easing curve. So what this is going to do is allow us that when we tap it, if it's full screen, it's going to go down to 0.38, and if it's less than full screen, we can't say if it's equal to 0.38, but we can say if it's less than 1, it's going to bring it back up to 1. So now when you do this, I tap it, it just plops right down, tap it, brings it right back up. Cool. So I want to make sure that if I have dragged this and I tap it, that this is going to go back to its home spot. I want to be able to tap this and have it, no matter where I've dragged from, if I tap it, that it's going to be centered right again. So we're going to add a move animation. Call this move with tap. Oops. This is when the photo is tapped. And if we see up here, its current position is -310 and -276. That's what we're going to tell it to do. So we're going to say go back to -310 and -276. We'll make sure that's fluid. We'll use a spring easing curve. Same when we use 20 and 250. And there's no delay. So now if I do this, tap it, it goes right back to where it was. I want to make sure that if I have opened this up, moved it, and close out, that we reset its position again. So we're going to do basically the same thing that we just did. Add another move animation, call this move with tap, or let's actually call this move with close. This is going to be based off of the Seagull's long press, and do the same thing. We're going to tell it to go back home. So at -310, -276, and for this one we're going to use that an ease out circular, not an ease in. So do 0.4 second duration, no delay. And so now if I've got this open, do that, if I close it, It goes right back home to where it needs to be. And then the final piece for this, what we're going to do, is say that if I have this shrunk down and I press and hold and close it, that it's going to shrink or scale back up to its original size. So we'll just add one more scale animation. We'll call this scale with close. And this is if Seagulls is long pressed. We're just going to tell it to scale up to 1x. And we'll do this spring. We'll keep this at 10 and we'll make this smaller. We don't want it to be too rapid since it's small. So we'll do friction of 10 and the tension of 50. And there's no delay on this. So now no matter what I do, if I open this up, I can scroll it, tap it. If I close it, it scales to its position. Close it from here, it scales back down. It's all scrollable, it's nice. Cool. Now one thing you gotta keep in mind when doing this, since we had to put this photo in a container, the container is actually the interactable area. So this area on here, the Photo 3 container, this is where when you are interacting with this, you want to drag it and tap it, that's where you need to do this. Now you are able to, if you want, to make the photo container larger, but that's going to affect your scale ratios. So just keep that in mind. I would suggest trying to do that and exploring the different options and different scale ratios that you would need to do in different placements, but that's part of the fun of figuring out how to build these things for yourself. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you next time.